just to get a feel for the kind of work people have been doing. So that's been really interesting to see for me.
A lot of it's been really, really good. We said this on our little party on Friday as well. Like, we've been very impressed as a teaching group with the quality of what you've managed to do over the last 4 weeks.
It's incredible. And it's been obviously a massive learning curve for us all, hasn't it? And that has been really interesting to see, you know, the adaptability and the creativity by which everyone involved has kind of got to grips with what we had to deal with in these times. I just think it's been phenomenal. And I just think don't underestimate the soft skills you've learned, like the ability to be adaptable, to think of new creative ways to solutions. When you're going out into industry and having interviews, emphasize that kind of, you know, those kind of soft skills, because that's what employers are looking for: creativity, adaptability, resilience to change.
Yeah, add those to your skills list that we did way back in week 1, because what you did then is way different to what you've learned now, and putting those on and just revisiting it and thinking, actually, I did all of this over the last few weeks, it'll stand you in good stead when you apply for jobs.
100%. I just think back to when I used to get CVs, when I used to be I was the equivalent of a news editor, really. I used to run the North desk of a national newspaper. So I used to get a lot of CVs from people looking for work. And it was always about that kind of resilience to me, was that thing that I looked for, you know, people who'd overcome difficulty and become a journalist, you know, and all of you have that, so you should be so proud of yourselves. I'm going to give it another 2 minutes, I think, to get everybody in the group, and just so you know, the other window that I have open, and I'm not going to follow on my screen, because these are things that people like to move through at different points. But the other window that I have is the critical analysis SWAY that I put up again this morning, that I just added to this morning. I'm trying to, anyway, I did have it open, but now it's just taking a little moment to upload. So if you just want to press play on that, if it's not gone automatically to the play thing, that's what we're going to be using. And then I'm going to be kind of giving you some broader context on the other materials that you have and how they kind of fit together in terms of working you to support your essay, because you've been given a lot of different sways on different topics. The instinct might be just to look at the sway on your topic, but that actually is not going to be the best way to equip yourself with the essay, because there's relationships between so many of these topics. So the smart, you know, if we were smart, we'd be looking at a range of different sways, and some of them I would just look at regardless of my topic, because they're such big, broad things that they will have impacted on all of your practice. So what I'm saying is, while you have a title, don't be afraid to draw on other bits of critical analysis and emphasize other points too. And then as we go through at each point of this session today, I'm going to pause at different points to give people the opportunity to ask questions. You can either type them and Chris will read them out to me as usual. I know that you're very aware of this one, or you can just speak up. I'm happy either way to answer your questions. But before we start, is there anything anyone would like some clarity on in a kind of broader sense, or would you prefer to just get started and going through the critical analysis?
I think we're good.
Oh, good. Well, this is really good. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get started. So I'm into the critical analysis of practice SWAY. So I'm not going to play the video, of me, but what I've done in this video is explain exactly what critical analysis of practice is. The closest thing you've done to it is you remember when you did your multimedia one second. Oh, I might be thinking about a different group here. When you did your blogs or your personalized news websites, did you do a 500-word contextual analysis with that? It's just dawned on me that might have been a different group. Chris, you're looking the same because we teach that other group too. Did you do a 500-word like kind of summary of that project, or did you just do the submit the links?
We just made the link. There's no 500.
Okay, that was a different group. I'm very sorry about that. It's sometimes hard to keep track of which students are doing which kind of project. So the closest thing you have done to this is your media analysis essays right at the beginning. What you did there was critically analyse other people's work, other media texts, other pieces of journalism in that module. Do we all remember that? Those 2 essays you did with Deborah?
Yeah.
So what we're doing now is a similar sort of task, but instead of analysing other people's practice, you're analysing your own. And you're emphasising the strengths and sometimes the weaknesses. And this is a really good thing, actually, because people sometimes say, oh, I wish I'd done that better. Will it impact my mark? Well, it might impact your mark on your second phase, but what you can do is build your marks in your essay by identifying that you wish you had done something better or you wish you'd taken a different approach. So don't be afraid to critically analyse both the positive and the negative. What I'm saying is that don't be frightened of pointing out that you wish you had done something better in your essay that will have no bearing on your phase 2 mark. Like, we're not going to read this essay and think, oh, we should, and go back and revisit your phase 2 mark. That's not what's going to happen here. So critical analysis of practice is a very interesting thing. A lot of people in a lot of universities do what they call reflexive work or reflections. And we used to do things like that on this program too in the past in different years, but reflection's a bit different. Reflection becomes very personal. It can often become quite, kind of like my story. It can be it's often in the first person narrative. Critical analysis of practice is a bit different. Sorry, an alarm has just gone off outside my house, so I'm just shutting that window. Critical analysis of practice is asking you to kind of take a step back, to be a little bit more distant, to not be focused so much on the I. So a trick that I often say to people when they're asking me about critical reflection of practice is to talk about your website or your journalism in the third person. So say the name of the website emphasized X. So for example, one of my websites or one of my old projects used to be called Mused News. So I would say Mused News emphasized journalism practice rather than I emphasized journalism practice in the following ways. Sorry, can you just give me one moment?
I'm sorry.
It's not this afternoon. What time? 3:30. I'm very sorry about that. I have a son and having medical appointments today, so it's all go in this house. So let me just think my train of thought. So thinking about things in the third person narrative will help you to critically analyze. So critical analysis is about a process of identifying, questioning and assessing our assumptions. So how did we, by our practice in journalism, challenge our assumptions, challenge our preconceptions about the industry, and think of creative solutions to overcome it? As a baseline, of course, you guys all had one set of creative solutions that you had to come up with right from the beginning. What do you think the biggest creative solution is that you've come up with in terms of phase 2? Anybody? What solutions did you have to come up with really quickly?
I I think that the whole situation is like we have to move everything online. So we have to come up with a new solution to, I don't know, conduct an interview or, you know, gather information and this research. So I think I used a variety of tools online. It's like you convert image to GIF or anything you can find online to help you to conduct your interview online. So I think that might be a kind of creative solution for phase 2.
I think that's perfect, Rui. I think you're absolutely right. As you all had to come up with creative solutions to be journalists when you couldn't go and interview people face to face. You couldn't go out and news gather a new thing. And you all came up with fantastic creative solutions to do that. You know, that every project has something in it which really emphasizes how you adapted to being a journalist in the age of COVID. So that is something that you could talk about straight away, that the assumption that you start about, you know, it says at the beginning of that critical analysis of practice thing, challenging assumptions. The assumption would have been 6 months ago, 7 months ago, how far along are we? Is it 6 months ago? Is that you had to go out and speak to people face to face. You had to news gather in that way. And the challenge, the creative challenge you all overcame was to not do that. You had to do it all online. So yeah, that's a really, really good one, Ray, and that's exactly what we are thinking about in terms of challenging assumptions. So when you critically analyze, what you should do is think about how all of your knowledge so far from your theoretical modules, and some of you did option modules such as politics, power and communication, celebrity journalism and self-identity. With me, news and journalism. You all did different essay-based modules in semester 2. So materials from across media analysis in those modules, how that knowledge equipped you to be a better journalist, because that's the point of doing a master's. There are many training courses out there that teach you how to be a journalist. They are not masters in a Russell Group university. What makes Newcastle different is that integration between research, theory and practice. And this essay gives you a chance to really summarise that journey you've had by drawing on the materials from your more theoretically based modules. So it's not a reading assignment in terms of a literature review where you're just pulling together all of your different readings. It is not also a summary of just your activity, and it's not a chance for you to talk about your own emotions and how difficult this was, although I know that it has been difficult. That's not the point of the essay. That's not going to help you get the highest marks possible against the assessment criteria for the essay. What it is a drawing together of theory, of your readings, of stuff that has helped you become a stronger journalist, and then capturing that and analysing that in an essay-based form. Okay, so does anyone have any questions at this point before we move on to the next bit? No? Nothing coming up?
Excuse me?
Yes?
Yeah, about the theory. So can we use all the theories we found in our references?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yes, about the theory we use, could we just apply all the theories we found in our references?
Yes, I don't know what you mean by all the theories. You wouldn't have space to look at all the theories you've looked at in terms of your MA, across the course of your MA. The key is to find the best possible readings and references that supported your practice and your ability to critically analyse that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Okay, so you'll see there that I gave you a top tip, and you've had this critical practice sway for a long time. I gave you it right at the beginning of phase 2 for this reason, was that it would make the task easier if you were already getting some basis of your critical readings in place and embedding them into the practice. And some of you will have done that, some of you won't, but I don't want you to panic if you don't. You didn't. There is so much reading and references and literature out there. You will be able to retrofit your critical analysis by reading some of your stuff moving forward. Let me see, so the next bit, I'm just clicking down. So how to critically analyse it. And there's basically 3 steps that you go through. And my best advice is that your paragraphs, if we take the introduction and the conclusion to one side for a second, let's park the introduction and conclusion for 1 second, and think about the bits where you will critically analyse your practice, the body of the essay. And there normally falls into 2 approaches to this. People fall into 2 approaches to this. Some people do a summary of their literature and then move on to their critical analysis of practice. Some people do it both together, right from the kind of first analytical paragraph. Both approaches are valid, and it really is a matter of preference. And these are the kind of decisions you should be making at a PGT level. If you look at journal articles, you will see that they normally fall into the first camp. So there'll be an introduction, then there'll be a theoretical overview bit, then there'll be normally a methodology bit, kind of 2-3 paragraphs of methodology bit, and then there would be the analysis bit where they still bring in theory again. Chapters of books normally fall into the second camp. They normally do the 2 things together all the way through. We are not going to dictate which approach you prefer, but the key point is in the analytical paragraphs themselves, these are the 3 key things you should check you have done in every paragraph. That you have demonstrated that you've understood the point that you're making, drawing from literature. You should then do the analysis bit, that you kind of asking the critical questions and demonstrating it from your own examples. And then you make a clear argument about what you learned and what you did and what you learned around it. That's the key to getting critical analysis paragraphs right. It is going through each of those 3 points and making sure you have covered them. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the kind of discussion, to the discussion around the examples, the essay topics themselves. And you've all chosen a topic, but of course those are integrated topics. Those have relationships between them. And it will be useful to look at some of the learning sways that are already up on Canvas around other topics too. So for example, I've done a learning sway on tabloidization. Now, tabloidization is a really, really broad topic, and actually all of journalism, a lot of journalism's current practice finds its roots in the tabloidization of journalism, which began in the 19th century, which were what was called the New Journalism. Things like interviewing itself was invented by tabloid journalists. Infographics were really, really their thing, the kind of using images. So regardless of your topics, for example, that's where we'll give you some useful stuff. Anyone who's done any form of infographics or data visualization, there's a sway on that, the relationship between tabloidization and infographics that Mary's done up on Canvas as well. Mary being an expert on infographics and the display of data. So again, you can go and use that one. That will help you to do things. Legal ethics and the legal, ethical and regulatory frameworks, well, all of you had to work within legal, ethical and regulatory frameworks in order to produce your journalism. So it might be that you overcame an obstacle and you want to discuss that and discuss maybe how you overcame it in the world that we're in the COVID world. So my best advice is to go and look at some of the other sways too. A lot of you have gone for the journalism as self-branding topic. I think it was the most popular overall. The other sway that is a must for you guys is the representational and presentational media sway, because that is the overarching umbrella under which the closer look at the self-branding as journalists. It's the overarching theoretical umbrella under which that will work. And as we move through to the seminar classes, my best advice would be attend as many as you like. Any of those seminar classes around those different things, don't feel that you can only attend the ones that are about the essay topic you identified. Also attend the other ones that might be that as you have moved through your practice, you've thought, oh, well, I've got that really interesting ethical example, or I had that really interesting bit of data visualization. I did an infographic, so the tabloidization one might be useful. Or I did that really interesting piece that had issues of representation around class or gender or race. So I'm going to attend those ones too. Think about attending the other ones. So while you have a clear title, don't be afraid to bring in your other examples and to use the learning over the next few weeks to, to the as much as possible, as much as useful for you. Does anyone have any questions on the essay topics or anything around that? No? I feel like, I don't know whether this is me being hopefully optimistic that you all kind of just got it from the sway in the first place, so this session's just consolidating it. Let's fingers crossed, eh? Okay, so the next part of it is, what should I consider thematically? So I've talked about what you should consider analytically, but what do you consider thematically? So the first is, of course, the theory, the theoretical perspective. Assessment criteria, tick. Think about those assessment criteria. One of them is about theoretical perspectives and theoretical overviews drawing from literature. So that's a very good place to start. Start pulling together your theory and the theoretical perspective for your essay. The next is a complex word, autoethnographic perspective. Ethnography. Do we all know what ethnography is? Is that a silence?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do know what ethnography is. It's the analysis of what goes on in a newsroom in our examples or in various other places. So autoethnography, if you think of autobiography, what do you think that might mean? If you've got ethnography would be the analysis of newsroom practice, what do you think by putting the word auto in front of it we're talking about? If we think autobiography, what does autobiography mean? Anyone? Well, the word auto denotes myself, doesn't it? So if you write an autobiography, you're writing your own biography. If you're writing a biography, you're talking about someone else. So autoethnography is analysing your own practice rather than somebody else's. So that might be the bit of method that you might want to drop in, a couple of quotes around autoethnography. Personal perspective. Why does the experience matter? What were the consequences, or what are the consequences? Did it challenge your assumptions? Were you surprised, and why? Systems perspective. So the big stuff. What was the relationship of power and influence and control? Particularly for things like, if you think about whether your website, does it promote consumerism? Who benefits from that? Does it challenge power about representing others and challenge that kind of perspective, the othering of other people? How does it do that? So thinking about the bigger picture, what is at the crux of the work you did? The next bit, now what? How does your experience, this is into your conclusion, how did your experience kind of change the way that you think about journalism? How will you act differently as a result? How did you apply what you learned? These are all really good for the conclusion section of your essay. So I've said this before, but my top tip here is try writing in the third person narrative as much as possible. Use the site name, terms such as the editorial strategy of, instead of my or I. The reason being, this will just help you keep the essay academically rigorous and stop you straying into an emotional or a personal account of what went good and what went bad. It will help you to keep that analytical rigor. Does anyone have any questions about that bit? No? Okay, so here's the kind of nitty-gritty bit of what you should do in terms of word count. So I know you've heard this before, but an introduction and a conclusion to an essay is normally roughly around 10% of the overall essay. So in this instance, when you're writing 3,000 words, it's about 300 words for the introduction and 3,300 words for the conclusion. Some tips for that is the introduction and conclusion should speak to each other. But one thing that people often fall into the trap of in terms of their introductions and their conclusions is that they write they give a kind of descriptive account of what the essay does. So they'll say things like, this essay, first of all, looked at theoretical perspectives and then it will critically analyse, kind of the pragmatic steps you went through. What you want to do instead of that is summarise the argument. This essay will argue that in the introduction. It will demonstrate that. It will draw on the readings of X, Y, and Z to show that. These are the kind of phrases you would have in an introduction. And in the conclusion, we've talked about already kind of what did you find? What did your work change? How did you adapt? What would you have done differently? Pulling together those kind of points into the conclusion so it stays analytically rigorous. Now, the essay plan I've given you here breaks down in the first sense, the one that would be a bit like a journal article, where people would do a theoretical overview first, and then the critical analysis sort of second. You can bring those things together, as I said, and think about it more than a chapter, like a chapter, if that's how you feel more comfortable with your writing and your critical analysis. That really is a decision for yourself. Okay, so methods. This is the bit that people often, kind of think about, how do I explain my method? And in terms of this, you're only expected to demonstrate your method or explain the method for your essay very, very lightly. You're not expected to kind of go into it into great detail. But you should highlight the kind of methods that you are doing. And based on your practice and also what we've talked about so far, I think that basically most of you, I think all of you, will draw on one and perhaps two or three of the following methods in some point of your essay. You'll look at your you'll do autoethnography, as we've already described, where you kind of analyse the practice itself, what goes on, what went on around news gathering, around organising interviews, around that kind of thing. You probably do some form of critical discourse analysis of some of your pieces themselves. If you were, for example, doing an essay around representation, you might demonstrate how your language was representing others, how it was doing it positively, maybe how in hindsight it did it negatively. So you would pull out some of that. There is content analysis, which is the numeric. So, for example, how many stories did you do around a certain thing? What does that demonstrate about the purpose of your website? How many of your pieces, for example, was about consumer culture. How many of them were very hard newsy, that kind of thing you would break down. Semiotic analysis, which is, of course, image analysis and looking at the pictures and what they demonstrated, why they were selected, and the purpose of them within the body of the site. But critical discourse, content, and semiotic often work together. You know, think of the thing as a cohesive whole. And then web sphere and persona studies analysis, things like social media, self-branding, what is the role of your own self in your own place in the journalism? How did you represent yourself or present yourself within the context of your piece? Really, those are the things that you were looking at. And my advice would be to drop in which ones that you are using into the introduction, just the terms themselves. And then if you feel that you need to kind of expand on that in the body of the essay, to do so. The relationship between theory and methodology, of course, is at the core of what you did in media analysis right at the beginning. So that relationship should come through quite strongly in terms of your essay, that you understand that will help you to get the best possible marks for this final assessment. Does anybody have any questions around method and how it would work within the body of your essay?
Bethany?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. I reckon that there's many methods that we can use, and we have to draw on the essay from our own experience. But how do we ever to conduct the essay in an objective way? It's like we analyze our own work, and we speak from our own experience, but we have to be academic and objective. So that's kind of a hard thing to do. It's like you speak for yourself and then you have to analyze it. So how to balance the two parts?
Yes, so the balance is about focus on the content as much as possible and focus on the decision making, but try and stay, my emphasis is to try and stay away from the I did this well, or I think this could have been done better. Talk about the project and the piece of journalism itself. This piece of journalism demonstrates that. The project, the editorial strategy demonstrates that, rather than I did this, I did that.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. I saw that from the swing, and I just don't want to make sure about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's just making sure that you don't turn into a description. I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this, and then we did that. That is a description, and it won't help you to get the best possible marks for a critical analysis.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's keeping the emphasis on an analysis of your practice rather than just describing what you did.
Yeah, understand. Yeah.
The theory will help you, of course, to do that. Mm-hmm. So top tip 4, I don't know if you did this, but this would be a good thing to do today while what you did is fresh in your mind from phase 2. Note down any experiences that you have, that you come to your mind that you think that's going to be a good one to analyse. Just drop down some notes and then also drop down any theories you already had in your head. What were the things that were in your head that you just knew? You knew because you'd already done media analysis and a range of the other essays. Look to that too, and just do a kind of like a mind map today, jotting down as much stuff as possible, just to give you, while your practice is fresh in your head, to give yourself something to work from. And then, of course, have some rest because you worked very hard last week. Don't feel the need to kind of go any further than that over the next couple of days. Just get some notes down so that you don't forget anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, any questions on that? Okay, so as we went down, what I did was give you a lot of links to sort of broad journals and books that would help you with the activity I've just described. They have something for everybody, regardless of your essay topic. There is so much stuff in that you can start from. So once you've had a kind of a kind of mind map, a jot down of everything that you think might be interesting to look at, start thinking about what the key terms might be and have a look through those readings that I've put up, and think about the relationship between those. Are there anything that would, back up your practice from these journals and from these books? The Routledge Companion to Journalism is a really useful book because it just has a bit of everything in it, and the chapters are quite succinct and short. So it's quite an easy book to kind of get your head around. But if you look on the squares themselves that have all gone up now on Canvas, all of those have lots of readings and things in too that will help you. So maybe start with some of the big broader ones, such as the tabloidization, representational and presentational ethics, public sphere. Have a look at some of those today, over the next few days. They're going to give you just some ideas. I'm sure they will give you things that you think, oh, I could do that. I could read that, or that journal article and analyzes something in a way that I could do something like. It will inspire you and to think about the relationships between your theory and your practice more succinctly and more cohesively. And you've got a lot of time to get this essay right, and a lot of sessions over the next few weeks in which you can talk about the essay itself, but also explore the themes with people from across the section are coming in who are experts in different areas. So it's really worth attending those seminar classes, the list of which is up on Blackboard, the timetable of which. It's worth attending those and kind of getting different people's perspectives that might inspire you to take a different approach or analyse your essay in a different way. Okay, the little videos there, as I say, you can go and look at in your own time. They kind of just summarise the same kind of thing we've talked about today. So we've now got 20 minutes left for any more questions, any more queries that anyone has on anything. No questions at all. Does anyone want to say something positive? I feel very confident, and that's why I'm not asking questions. Does anyone have any worries about this that they want to talk about? Any worries at all?
Worry about the construction of the essay.
Okay, what's your worry? Which construction are you worried about? Are you worried about which way to lay it out? What's the introduction, conclusion, that kind of thing?
Because a little bit worried about a lack of the confidence to make a connection, my topic and my website.
Okay, so I mean, the key to that is picking a topic that you can see connections with. That's the most important thing, is that if you, in reflection, think actually the essay wasn't the best topic, that's fine. We can make amendments to that. But, the essay topic should help you make those connections. So
yeah. And will we have any drop-in or next week or?
Yeah, so I have another I'm going to be doing a drop-in on Wednesday. There is a schedule on Canvas that tells you from next week you have drop-ins both with the person who supported you during your practice stage, and then there are seminars with experts on the theory and the theoretical perspectives. So there's lots of sessions over the next few weeks to help you with that.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
So I'm going to be here again on Wednesday morning for any other queries that anybody has. when we have a think about everything. Any other questions? Did that answer your questions? Sorry.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions or concerns or worries they'd like to raise?
Hi, Bethany.
Hi.
Question. I just heard you just said maybe when we choose a topic, and we can just pick some part of the project and talk about that, not just talk about the whole project, right?
That's exactly right. So it would, in your introduction, you should introduce the project too and give an overview of the project, what it was the point of the site. Now, in the essay body itself, and you can go down and drill down into some of the topics in more detail.
Yeah, because the project is made by 2 people, so we have different content. So maybe it might affect my topic choose. And for example, when I talk about self-brand, so I might choose some specific themes news, but my friend maybe just they go another way.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I can just talk about my work.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's fine. You can talk about, if there was the same project, you can talk about how it fit within other people's work too.
Okay.
Did it work well? Did it not?
Oh, I also can assess others' work.
You can talk about how if you worked in a project together, if you worked in a project together, you can talk about how it fit together. Yes, so how your work fit together.
Okay, so if we work in different ways, so I can just talk about my work.
You can talk about your work and you could say this fit well, or in hindsight, the project could have done with more balance between X and Y.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other queries or concerns? No? Okay, guys, well, please feel free to continue to chat underneath this session. If you have anything you can type up, and I'll come back to them later today and have a look at it. And we will take it from there. And there is so much support in place. If you look at the schedule on Canvas over the next few weeks to get this final phase as strong as possible, it's really going to hopefully be something that will help you round off your work and bring your whole learning experience across your masters to a kind of cohesive end that has helped you make links between the different aspects of your masters here. Thank you very much then, everybody. Silence. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I am here again Wednesday morning at 11 for a drop-in session for you to just come and ask any questions that you have.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.